Welcome to Juvo Hub, your helping hand in property management education. We are so thankful that you have joined us, and please remember to follow and like us on your favorite social media outlet, which you can find in our show notes. Now let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Juvo Hub podcast, your helping hand in property management education. So glad to be back with you today. Today, we have a returning guest, Mike Brewer, the Chief Operating Officer of Radco Residential. Mike, welcome back. Love to have you here again. How are you doing?
Thank you first and foremost. And to answer your question, it's a cloudy day in Atlanta, and cloudy days anywhere make me happy, actually. So it's a good day.
Yeah. We're having such a nice spring here in the Atlanta area. I think it's been one of the cooler springs that I can remember usually it's okay. It goes from like a 3-day spring to 90 degrees here in Atlanta. So yeah, I concur. Very, very nice day outside today. So I've heard you say from time to time on your show, which audience, by the way, please, if you haven't subscribed to Mike's podcast, you need to do that. The why behind the what. And that's what we want to talk about today. I think that's such an intriguing statement. And I wanted to get your take. And from the perspective for our audience, I feel like this subject is very much a personal leadership plus a team leadership expression. So we're looking forward to hearing why it resonates with you and how you try to apply it personally and with your team. But let's just start with some background. What does that expression mean to you?
So I see it from a motivational and an inspirational perspective. If I'm thinking high level, right? If I'm attempting to motivate or inspire somebody to do something, take an action that is going to produce a positive outcome, or hopefully a positive outcome, then helping said individual and or group understand the bigger meaning and or the why we might be doing something helps them engage, right? If they can understand, even if they don't necessarily agree with said thing, right? If they can at least understand the perspective behind why we're trying to accomplish something, then they're more inclined to be inspired or motivated to actually take action on the direction that we're trying to go. I think that applies both in a business world or a business context and also in a personal context, be it in your family or your home life and or in your community. If you're volunteering out in the community, I think it applies everywhere across the board. And one other item that I would add, I think I was inspired by the why behind the what. If maybe we link this up in the show notes, but Simon Sinek's, why he draws these circles on the board. And if we define the why, then the how becomes apparent and other things are born out of that. So that's where I was inspired to get on board with the why behind the what statement.
Yeah, that's excellent. I love it. So, it makes me think of, and you and I were chatting just before we started recording about where this applies with like multi-generational workplaces. So we have so many people that you do, especially, I just have a little company, but I'm sure in your experience that means something maybe different to different generations, maybe generations that are a bit older than you and I. And then we have the younger generations. Do you feel like is that a true statement? And how does that impact what you do and what you practice for Radco?
Yeah, this is an interesting topic, and you're right. I think at last count there are potentially five generations in the workplace today, from traditionalists right down to Gen Z. I think is the latest to enter the workforce. But I think what we were talking about offline, using an example of being on time, right, for something, and and this, I don't want this to sound like an indictment of the younger generation, because it's certainly not, or maybe it's going to come across as a criticism, but I don't mean it the way it's going to sound, but it is a good example. So in my head, being on time is a demonstration of respect, right? And it's respect for a person who calls a meeting. It's respect for the people in the room. And in my head, it's also self-respect, right? In following through on a commitment that you made to be at a place, to do a thing at a time. So I think with the youth in the generation sees being 5 minutes late as not a big deal, or being able to say, traffic really held me up. Well, traffic in Atlanta has always been traffic in Atlanta, so solve for it, right? And so I think, but if you think about older generations, if we were comparing and contrasting against, different generations, an older generation would not even dream of being late to a meeting. In fact, they'd probably show up 10, 15, 20 minutes early. I've even heard CEOs say, if the meeting starts at 7, the meeting really starts at 6:45.
Right.
Right. And so I think it's been a bit of a challenge when you're thinking about the why behind the what, and you boil it down to things that really in my mind are character traits, helping someone understand, why being on time is a reflection of self-respect as much as it is teams respect and or organizational respect has been a challenge now that we have all these generations in a workplace. I think it's easy to say it. I think it's quite a different thing to see it play out in practice.
Yeah. Okay. That triggered something in my crazy Canadian brain here. So, I remember because we had Janet on the show, Janet Bailden, amazing guest. She was awesome. Everything that we talked about was fantastic. But I remember the one episode that talked about what Radco does for like employee engagement and your town halls, and really helping with that purposeful, this is who we are, this is what Radco is, which was fantastic, is absolutely fantastic. So I want to contrast that for a minute to an employee who doesn't have that, doesn't work in that type of culture. They are literally, it is literally like that punch the clock mentality. You're here, you got your job to do. It's 5 o'clock, goodbye, and the next shift starts or whatever's going on. For that person, their why behind the what, to me, takes on a whole different meaning. Like it has to, why are they working, and who are they trying to support by being employed, and making sure that they stay employed. So I don't know if that makes any sense. So if we just take the company out of it for a second, and we have those in our audience who are just like, you know what, where I work is terrible. Where does the why behind the what come into play more on an individual level? If that's a fair question. What do you think of that thought line?
Yeah, I actually love that question. And I am going to use an answer that is in a work context, but I think that it applies to personal inspiration and motivation. So many years ago, I'm not going to name the number because it'll make me seem really old, but I believe at the time I held the position of assistant manager at a property, and the maintenance supervisor who worked there, actually it was a maintenance technician at the time. He later on became a supervisor. His name was Joe. And Joe came in to our office. It was a Saturday. We happened to be working together there. So the property manager wasn't there and the maintenance supervisor wasn't there. And he was really frustrated with a unit turn that he was doing. And he was just railing, right? Complaining. And finally stopped him. And I said, and I was had to add this piece. I was reading a book at the time called The Magic of Thinking Big by the author's name was David Schwartz, or it is David Schwartz. So Magic of Thinking Big. And Joe was complaining. I let him get to the end of his complaining, and I said, you know what, let's walk over to this unit. And he was, and show me what you're talking about. So we walk over there. He shows me this piece of caulking in the tub surround for the tile corners and across the bottom and across the base of the tub. And he's like, this stuff is terrible. And it's such hard work and got to scrape it all out. And I said, okay, stop for a second. And let's think about you as a person and maintaining dignity and growing character and like making you a better version of you. And let's think about this caulking job as an exercise or a rep in becoming the better you. And let's think about it in the context of you becoming the best, stripper of this caulking and the reapplying of it and making it look beautiful. Let's think about you becoming the best person in the world at doing that, right? And then when Charles comes in on Monday and Terry comes in on Monday, let's take him over there and let's show him, right? But the why behind the what there is that you are going to be very proud of your craftsmanship. And as a result, you're going to have this rep, and then you're going to do it again and again and again. And your craftsmanship and your dignity are going to grow and grow and grow. So we did just that. When Terry and Charles come in on Monday, we take them over and we show them, and they're like, oh, this is the greatest thing. Look, it really did. It looked beautiful. But then Joe, 6 months removed, plus minus from that time, ends up getting promoted and taking over a bigger community, or that community, because Charles got promoted and moved over to a different one. Now, Charles probably got promoted because Joe was doing a better job at unit turns, right? But I think helping Joe understand that something even as minor as making this pristine line right in a tub surround could help him grow as a person, really got him inspired and really got him motivated. And kudos to him.
Yeah, I remember you telling that story too in one of your podcasts. That was excellent. Great example, great experience there of, moving beyond the caulk, moving beyond the caulking, there's such a bigger picture there than the little task that is just aggravating you, or, the process that is aggravating you. Yeah. I remember that story. And I'll tell you, Mike, this subject is one that is I'm very passionate about too, just because my own personal experience from when my children were little and I was in that job, that was like a 70-hour-a-week job, 4 a.m. to like 5 p.m, 6 days a week. And, holidays were just brutal because of the type of industry I was in at the time. And I remember saying to my wife, the why behind the what was I had 2 little children that needed, they needed food and they needed a place to stay. And so that was enough motivation for me to be able to keep going, even though the work was very, very challenging, until I could get to a situation where I could make that change. But I never forgot the personal lessons of, okay, even though this isn't the most ideal circumstances, I need to figure out a path to finding the better circumstances, and at the same time showing up, still giving my team my absolute best until the appropriate time for that change. And it did. We wound up moving here to Atlanta, and here I am. Been in property management on the industry partner supplier side for 15 plus years now. And I'm very, very grateful for all those lessons learned.
Are sales involved in property management? Anytime a lease is signed, a sale has been made. Training will help sharpen those skills. JuvoHub is happy to announce its new online course, Sales Fundamentals. Learn more about this course at juvohub.com, your helping hand in property management education.
So I'm wondering how much that, do you see for our audience purposes, like the relationship to what you were trying to impress upon an employee at that time, what is the mental leadership path that we want our audience to think about, your takeaways from that on putting the why behind the what? Any other thoughts along that line?
Yeah, I think if I were to back way up, right, or just get to a 75,000 or 50,000 foot view of this particular topic, I think I couch it in this philosophy, which I'm sure is not mine, but I've adopted it from somebody that I've read, and it's looking at the world as a gigantic education, right? And anything and everything that comes your way or happens to you, no matter what the catalyst is, it's there for you to do a repetition, just like building muscles in a gym. You're doing a rep to build a particular piece of your character, and the world being a great big education, and the world's coming at you constantly, right? And it's not going to stop. And you sometimes create your own, problems, or the world creates problems, and you have to, in any way or in any circumstance, you have to show up and you have to do the rep. So if you take that context of world is a great big education, your time here on earth is in part to grow your character, become a better version of you every single day, so that you can show up and be a beneficial presence to the people around you and inspire them in some way, shape, or form. Then in my head, the why behind the what is really to drive you. You have to go inside to become better outside and to inspire and motivate people. So I think my big takeaway is just change your mindset from the world happens to me to I happen to the world, and I'm happening to the world because I'm doing the reps to show up to be a beneficial presence to people.
Extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Yeah. And it's so easy to get, man, we just live in a society these days where it's like everything is very, very tense. Everything is like, there's a lot of issues, and they can drive you crazy. They're very personal for many people. So that's totally understandable. So it can be hard to sometimes look at the world from that vantage point, or try to put yourself there. But that's an excellent point. So I appreciate you, sharing that experience that I know we'll have to link it up. I can't remember what episode number it was, but I definitely want to be able to link it up in the show notes if you happen to remember when you shared that story. And like, how many episodes are you up to? You're like 1,000, 2,000 or something like that on your show.
A lot.
A lot. Yeah. It's absolutely fantastic. But a lot of fun. But I remember that. I would love for our audience to be able to just take a minute and hear that whole episode. So we'll try and link it up in our show notes. And objectives and takeaways as we wrap this up. The why behind the what. Really, I think we've magnified the separation between what we can do as leaders, for our team, and helping them appreciate things from a company or a corporate standpoint. But this episode in particular has really, really focused on you, me, audience, everyone who's listening or watching this. Take this personally and maybe ask yourself that question. What is my why? Why do I do this? Why is my motivation? Why, go through that exercise and see where you are. Where are you in the light of the world right now in your progression? What's your objective summary, Mike, for this particular episode? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that, everything that you just said. And I think as what came to mind while you were saying that is you have to be responsible and take personal agency for starting, right? And in the example that I used with Joe, the start sometimes is looking at something that is really off-putting to you. Like that job for Joe is very off-putting to him. But shifting the mindset And that, I think that's probably the big kind of summation and takeaway for me, is shift that mindset into becoming world class at that very thing that you hate the most, because it is the rep that is necessary for you to take the step to the next thing, right? And only you can do that. Only you can choose that. And I think, to your point about living in a world that's full of divide, the way to get through that divide is to focus here, not out here, and clean this up, right, so to speak. And then guess what? The world starts to really kind of clean itself up also, for some weird reason.
Right.
So that'd be my takeaway.
Love it. Love it. Great, great thoughts for our audience. So I'm so grateful to have you back on the show again, my friend. Love your show. Everyone, please make sure, if you haven't done so already, to check out Mike Brewer and his, because you're on YouTube and you're on podcast, right, Mike? Or is it
anywhere you find your podcast, for sure.
Got it. And what's the name of the show again?
Multifamily Collective.
Multifamily Collective. Yeah, make sure you connect. Any other ways you want people to connect with you at all?
Yeah, you can find me on all the socials, LinkedIn, or my email address. I'm sure that's somewhere out there everywhere. So
Okay.
I respond pretty much anywhere I can. And if I don't get back to you immediately, it's only because there's like volume, and I just have to get through it as quick as I can. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. And thank you to all of our audience for being here today. Until next time, class dismissed. Take care, everyone.